Because he stayed with me all night at the hospital after I intentionally fell down the stairs, Ethan spent the entire night by my side. This led to him and Bella not ending up together. After learning the truth, he hated me for 10 years. When I was in critical condition during childbirth, he resolutely insisted that the doctors save the baby. He said it was something I owed him. If I were to live my life over again and see Ethan once more, my heart would remain calm. Congratulations to both of you, may your love last forever. Before graduation, Ethan started dating Isabella. At the class banquet, everyone gathered around the long table, cheering for the two of them, clink glasses, clink glasses. Ethan's ears turned red as if they were about to bleed. He silently raised his glass, smiling at Isabella. Seeing his expression, I couldn't help but recall our high school days in a past life. Back then, during the school sports meet, he signed up for the short distance race and, as expected, came in first. I stood at the finish line handing him a towel, and his ears were just as red as they were now. Ethan gave up the opportunity to study abroad for Isabella. He's really gone off the deep end. Emily's voice stood out amidst the sea of well wishes. She turned her head to look at me. You two grew up together, why didn't you try to talk him out of it? I couldn't help but laugh. Who said I didn't try? Thinking back to my previous life, it was also on this day that Ethan stood before me with a look of hatred on his face. Sophia, explain yourself. The phone in his hand was playing a recording Isabella had sent him. In the recording, I admitted that I had intentionally fallen down the stairs to prevent Ethan from meeting her. She also sent Ethan the photo, where he was lying beside my hospital bed, sleeping deeply. Ethan's expression was the worst I'd ever seen, not even when he missed out on first place in the monthly exam had he looked that bad. There's nothing to explain. It's just as you know. I know explaining is useless. He'll only believe what he wants to believe. Anything I say now is pointless. He won't believe this recording or the first part of it. I heard you two were childhood sweethearts. I just found it interesting and wanted to see how strong a childhood friendship could be. If you had been patient and waited until I got bored, I might have dumped him. But it seems you couldn't wait. That's fine, I don't want him anymore, but I won't give him to you either. If he ever hears this, he'll only say one thing. Sophia, you're crazy. Now, I sit in the corner, silently watching them finish their wedding toast. Suddenly, someone who likes to stir up trouble shouts, Ethan, where's your Sophie? I hold my wine glass and walk from the corner to the two of them, smiling brightly and saying from the bottom of my heart, congratulations to you both. May you have a long and happy life together. My parents died in a car accident when I was in my second year of high school. They were arguing and fighting over the steering wheel, causing the car to veer off the road and plunge into the river below the cliff. Overnight, I became an orphan. Everyone pitied me, but I only felt relieved. A mother who would choke me by the neck and scream about dying together after arguing with my father. A father who would beat me whenever things didn't go his way at home. What was there to pity about me? The irony was that in public, they would pretend to be a loving family. Only Ethan knew the truth. Despite my efforts to hide it, he noticed the bruises on my neck. He rolled up my sleeve and saw the scars on my arm. He once said, the worse it gets, the more you can't give up. I'll help you. Once you become strong, they won't be able to hurt you anymore. Ethan and I have been neighbors in the same community since we were kids. Later, when we moved out of the community, our families still lived in the same subdivision. When the fights at home got too intense, I was afraid of being choked or beaten, so I would run to his house. His home was so warm. Hot meals, all kinds of snacks, loving parents, it was like heaven. Mrs. Carter asked if I had eaten, Mr. Carter told me to study hard, and Ethan cleared half of his desk for me to study. He was smart, studious, and well-liked. Even when we were still in the community, the adults were certain he would amount to something great in the future. Every time I came home after an argument and told them I was at Ethan's house, they wouldn't bother me. I always remembered Ethan's words. You have to get stronger. Once you're strong, they won't be able to touch you. I once considered confessing my feelings to Ethan. However, before I could act on it, Isabella appeared. Isabella attended an art university near Harvard University and gained fame online for dancing in a girl group and playing in a band. In that school filled with beautiful women, she was the brightest star. She was the kind of girl you couldn't resist, living life to the fullest, bold, and radiating her own light. She was from another world. So when rumors started spreading that Juilliard School Bella was pursuing Harvard University's aloof ace, many people were thrilled. Everyone talked about how well-suited they were, and how their relationship might become another legendary love story. While discussing it, everyone's gaze would inevitably drift toward me. After all, the two aces had been childhood sweethearts, once the subject of their own love story. I had grown accustomed to the girl's admiration for Ethan and believed my life wouldn't change. At the time, I was busy with my studies and various part-time jobs. After all, even with a full scholarship, living expenses were no small expense, and I needed to plan for the future. Besides that, I continued to discuss projects with Ethan and eat meals together as usual. But he began to miss more and more of our gatherings. Until one day, during the Juilliard School's centennial celebration, Isabella took the stage as the finale and danced to a popular girl group song. With the fast-paced music and constantly changing lights, the girl on stage, freely expressing her youth, seemed to become the center of the world. The cheers from the audience were deafening. I glanced at Ethan, and saw a light in his eyes that I had never seen before. His gaze never left Isabella. He had been captivated by that dazzling world. Ethan had skipped an important speech competition at college for her. But I didn't want him to be with Isabella. Because one day, I accidentally overheard Isabella talking on the phone in the bathroom. "Meet me at the usual spot later. I'll bring him along. It's not finalized yet, but it's almost done. Just so you know, I won this round." "Are you kidding? There's no way a man can get the better of me. Ace, I've never tried it before. I want to give it a shot. If it doesn't work out, I'll just move on to the next one. What's the big deal? Yes, I'm lacking love. I just love seeing others go to such lengths for me. Should we make another bet to see how far he'll go for me? I just don't want to see him destroyed." So that day, I fell down the stairs and clung to his hand, refusing to let him go. He was the one who changed my destiny. I naively thought that this time, it was my turn to change his destiny. He later went to explain things to Isabella, but she already had a boyfriend. I thought that even if we couldn't be lovers after that incident, we could still be friends, but I realized I was too naive. I never imagined that one day he would hate me, and Isabella would become a mountain between us. Isabella said she would wait for him that day. If he showed up, it meant he agreed to be with her. If he didn't come, it meant they weren't meant to be, and she wouldn't try to keep him. After marrying Ethan, I asked him why he had been so kind to me back then. Ethan said it was because he felt sorry for me. What about that kiss? His expression was stiff at the time. He must have thought I was asleep. It was just the foolishness of youth. His tone was cold and indifferent. "And Sophia, would you be where you are today without me? You're asking for too much." Ethan became a rising star in the field of physics. Despite offers from numerous universities abroad, he ultimately decided to return to China. He teaches at a top-tier university in China, has his own laboratory, and is revered by the academic community. His research projects never lack funding. He gives speeches, grants interviews, and appears on magazine covers. He's at the peak of his career. Meanwhile, I had to stop my research work after getting pregnant and facing a high-risk pregnancy, left alone in an empty room enduring his emotional abuse. We had married out of obligation to fulfill the dying wish of Ethan's ailing mother. It wasn't until that moment that I finally understood. When the helmsman strays off course, what you should do isn't help him return to the right path. You should find your own ship and become your own helmsman. This time around, I didn't let myself fall down the stairs, and he ended up with Isabella as he desired. I'm curious about his future. I want to see what he'll become. I never went back to Ethan's house. When my mother choked me, saying we should die together, I choked her back. Fine, let's die together. Anyway, I've already died once. Who's afraid of who? She was so scared that she never dared to touch me again. When my father got drunk and wanted to beat me to vent his anger, I grabbed a kitchen knife and swung it at him. He was so scared that he sobered up and never dared to get drunk in front of me again. When they started fighting again, I fought even harder than they did. I smashed everything in the house to pieces, shouting that if anyone disturbed my studies, no one would be spared. She's gone mad, this girl has gone mad. That man, who was 100 times crazier than me when he was drunk, slammed the door and left. Because I made such a commotion, the entire subdivision knew about what happened in my family. Soon after, they divorced. No one wanted me, but the court still awarded custody to my mother, and my father moved out of that house. By the time I started high school, my mother had found a new life and left me behind. That house was left with only me. The people in the subdivision felt sorry for me, but they didn't know that I was actually happy. From then on, I followed the path of my past life step by step. I always had one regret: if I hadn't gotten pregnant back then and hadn't stopped my research work, how high would I have risen? One day, Ethan rang the doorbell at my house. He stood tall and slender at the door, his face bearing the same confident expression as in my previous life. "This is the sweet and sour pork ribs my mom made. I'm bringing some over for you." He handed me the bowl and looked at the empty living room behind me. "My mom said that if you ever have nothing to do, come over to my house for dinner. Don't be shy. It's just a matter of adding another pair of chopsticks." I looked at him and smiled silently, thanking his aunt for me. He nodded, turned around, and left. After taking 2 steps, he turned back to look at me and suddenly asked, "How did you do it?" "What? How did you always get first place in your class?" I was momentarily dazed, because in my previous life, I had asked Ethan the exact same question. At the time, he had replied, "Because I'm going to a bigger stage." And I was just someone who no longer had anyone or anything to hold me back. I followed the usual path and got into Harvard University. On the first day of school, we met at the new student registration desk. He reached out his hand to me, smiling brightly. "Please take care of me, Alex." I looked at his slender, well-defined fingers and shook his hand. Sure enough, his hands were just as warm as they had been in my previous life. But my heart was completely unmoved. My university life remained busy and fulfilling. The only difference was that the people I discussed projects with and ate meals with were no longer Ethan. Emily found it strange. "Aren't you and Ethan from the same place? Why aren't you close?" I couldn't help but laugh. Who said people from the same place have to be close? Ethan had also come to me with his research project, asking to discuss it together, but I had refused him. He was probably rejected for the first time in his life. He stood there dumbfounded and suddenly asked, "Sophia, did I do something wrong? Why do you seem to be avoiding me?" I looked at him and smiled. "No, I'm just really busy and don't have time." I saw a hint of disappointment in his eyes, but it was quickly overshadowed by Isabella's arrival. For a while, everyone around us was talking about them. It was said that Bella from Juilliard School was pursuing Ethan. They actually looked good together, a handsome guy and a beautiful girl, a perfect match. It was said that Ethan had agreed to be with Isabella, and they were now together. The news that Bella from Juilliard School had won over Ethan, the ace from Harvard University, somewhat eased the sadness of graduation and impending separation. While everyone was busy with their own futures, Ethan gave up Oxford and chose to go south with Isabella. I couldn't help but recall the words I overheard in the bathroom in my past life. I was also a bit curious about how far he would go for this love. However, since we're so far apart now, I probably won't hear any news about them. When Ethan heard I was pregnant, he just laughed coldly. "So you used my mother, and now you want to use the child? Sophia, let me tell you, it's useless." The last time I saw Ethan before leaving the country was at the airport. Isabella was walking ahead, holding a tripod camera and filming a video. Ethan was carrying a bunch of bags and dragging 2 suitcases behind him. When he saw me, his expression froze. I wondered if he had remembered his goal of getting into Oxford. At that moment, he seemed a bit evasive. Isabella also saw me, walked over to greet me enthusiastically, and waved at her camera. "Hey, Harvard University's ace, what a coincidence to run into you here. I heard you got accepted to Oxford. Are you leaving now?" I subtly avoided him and politely said goodbye. After that, Ethan and I went our separate ways, like two parallel lines that would never intersect again. Turning around was like saying goodbye forever. Thinking back to this day in my previous life, it was Mr. and Mrs. Carter who had driven us to the airport. At that time, Ethan and I hadn't spoken in a long time, but we both tried our best to appear normal in front of the two elders. As soon as we boarded the plane, Ethan switched seats with someone else, and we didn't speak another word until Mrs. Carter fell seriously ill. Those who aren't meant to be together will never be together. If they do end up together, it's only torture for themselves. Time seemed to pass effortlessly, but it changed many things. I returned to my alma mater for an academic exchange program between Oxford and Harvard University. Some former classmates who had stayed on campus heard I was back and insisted on organizing a class reunion. The once ambitious young men and women had been tempered by life's experiences, shedding their youthful naivety to become mature and composed. We drank freely, talked about our careers, our current lives, and the past. Someone mentioned how Ethan had given up further education for Isabella back then. Isabella is now a social media influencer with over 10 million followers. Ethan, what's it like having a celebrity girlfriend? Everyone turned their gaze toward Ethan, who was sitting alone in the corner, silent. After so many years, he had changed a lot. The once promising young man now carried the air of a disillusioned adult. The confidence in his eyes had vanished, replaced by a gloom he might not even notice himself. Without the ace aura, he was just an ordinary person. "We've broken up." His voice was soft, but everyone present heard it, and the room fell silent, followed by whispers. "How could that happen? I saw you on her Weibo." The person who asked the question realized they had said the wrong thing and quickly changed the subject, speaking of the academic exchange conference. Everyone tried to ease the awkward atmosphere by joining in the new topic, and no one paid attention to him anymore. And so, the once promising ace, who had once been the center of everyone's attention, stepped off the stage where he once had an audience. Since I was the organizer of the academic exchange conference, the conversation naturally turned to me. During the event, I felt several glances from the corner. I wonder what he was thinking at that moment. He didn't stay until the end, he left quietly in the middle, and no one noticed his departure. Emily sighed, "So they say you choose your own fate. If he had gone with you back then, what would he be like now?" Now? I lowered my head and thought about it. In my previous life, at this time, he was already a star in the academic world. Later, Emily told me the gossip she had heard. Apparently, Isabella had cheated on him and fallen for a male celebrity named Liam. At the time, Ethan had accompanied Isabella to the south for career opportunities, but his field of study didn't offer many advantages in that region. One day, Isabella finally confessed to him that she had fallen in love with someone else. She said that although their relationship couldn't be made public, she truly loved the other person. She admitted that she had only pursued Ethan because of a bet. She heard that Harvard University's top student was like an iceberg, and if she could win him over, her friends would acknowledge her charm. Ethan sat there motionless for a long time before finally asking, "What do I mean to you?" Isabella was blunt, a passing stranger. Everyone's life is filled with countless passing strangers, some stay longer, others shorter. You don't really think we could end up together, do you? If you do, you're being naive. Ethan, we're from different worlds. Despair flashed in Ethan's eyes. Isabella, I gave up my chance to study abroad and my bright future for you. I didn't force you to do that. We're all adults. You have to take responsibility for your own choices. Don't blame others. In the end, Isabella moved out of the house she shared with Ethan. Later, Ethan went looking for her and even attempted suicide. Emily paused here, seemingly unable to believe that the person she knew could do such a thing. Isabella left the city to avoid him. And so, the once passionate love story of Bella chasing Ace was swept into the river of time, erased by the waves it had stirred up. Mrs. Carter contacted me, saying she heard I was back and hoped to see me. She was hospitalized and had just undergone surgery, so I bought a fruit basket to visit her. As soon as we met, she grabbed my hand and said, "Shall we? Thank you so much. If it weren't for you constantly reminding me to get a checkup, I wouldn't have discovered the tumor in time. Auntie took such good care of me back then, This is what I should do. The elderly woman before me no longer looked as withered as she had in my previous life. I could feel the warmth in her hands. Sophia, at the class reunion the other day, there were so many people I couldn't talk to you. You've achieved so much now. Congratulations. You're different from before. You've become more beautiful. Thank you. Then he sighed as if weighed down by something heavy. If I had left with you back then, would things be different now? I don't know, Ethan. I regret it, Sophia. The wind stung my eyes. In my previous life, I had once said the same words to myself. After that night he got drunk, the facade of peace between us was torn open, revealing a bloody wound. Looking inside, all I saw was rotten flesh. At that moment, I looked at the woman in the mirror, pale-faced, sunken-eyed, with disheveled hair like a ghost, and said the exact same words. I regret it. At that time, when I was preparing to divorce Ethan, I discovered I was pregnant. It was conceived on the night Ethan was drunk. Will this child truly be blessed? I had my doubts and hesitated. But I had no family left in this world. This child would become my family. With that thought and the tenderness of a first-time mother, I decided to keep the child. Hearing those words, my heart, which had already begun to heal, froze completely. Mrs. Carter couldn't get out of bed. Upon hearing the news of my pregnancy, she struggled to lift her emaciated hand to grasp mine. Shall we? Thank you. She didn't live to see the child born. After Mrs. Carter passed away, Ethan's attitude toward me became completely unhidden. He rarely came home, and when he did, he would mock me with cold words. How did you get so ugly? Are you doing that for someone else? I ignored him and decided to divorce him after the child was born. The doctor said I hadn't taken good care of the baby in the early stages and the pregnancy was unstable, so I paused all my work to focus on the pregnancy. I was determined to make this child happy and would do my best to raise him well. Unfortunately, heaven wouldn't even grant me that wish. Mr. Carter called to say he wanted to come see me and asked if there was anything I wanted to eat. I don't know if it was because I was distracted by the call, but I lost my balance and fell down the stairs. Before losing consciousness, only one thought flashed through my mind. I really brought this upon myself. When I woke up in the hospital, the first thing I heard was Ethan saying, "Save the baby." In the end, the baby didn't survive. As I lay dying, Ethan came to my bedside and said his final words. Sophia, this is karma. If there is a next life, let's never meet again. I no longer felt any emotions toward him. The warmth and care I had once received from him in my youth had long been overshadowed by his later coldness and cruelty. Returning to the subdivision where I had lived for over a decade, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. I had fulfilled the promise I made to myself on my deathbed in my previous life, to have no further connection with Ethan. Mrs. Carter invited me to her home for a meal to celebrate my discharge from the hospital. I was about to leave, and thinking that this might be the last time we would see each other, I did not refuse. Your aunt is still recovering and cannot do housework, so I will prepare the meal. It may not be as good as your aunt's cooking, but it should be decent. Try some. Mr. Carter took off his apron, sat down at the table, and greeted me warmly. Mrs. Carter placed a piece of sweet and sour pork ribs in my bowl. This was made under my guidance. I remember how much you loved it when you were a child. Try it and see how Ethan did. I took a small bite and said, "It's nowhere near as good as your cooking." Mrs. Carter laughed and said, "Practice makes perfect." Seeing that I didn't respond, she continued. There's also some good news in our family. Actually, Xiao Che has been admitted to Harvard University's graduate program. Harvard University has an exchange program with Oxford, right? He said he'd try to go there as an exchange student in a couple of years, and since you're already there. I knew what Mrs. Carter meant. Having lived 2 lifetimes, how could I not understand? Auntie, actually, I'm already married. As soon as I finished speaking, the room fell silent. I saw Ethan's hand, which had been midway to picking up some food, freeze in midair for a moment. My wedding with my husband was postponed due to this exchange program. He's already arranged everything and is waiting for me to return. Oh, I see. The atmosphere in the room grew icy instantly. Mr. Carter didn't want to seem rude, so he asked, "What does your husband do? Is he good to you?" "He's in research like me, and he's very good to me." Mrs. Carter nodded. That's good, that's good. You've been alone all your life, and now you finally have a happy home. Auntie is happy for you. After dinner, Ethan offered to walk me home, but I refused. He walked me to the door. "Sophia, congratulations. Wishing you happiness." "Thank you." I thought this might be the last conversation I'd ever have with Ethan in this lifetime. I never expected to receive a news alert on my way home about Isabella's death in a car accident. I had thought she had escaped that fate. The accident happened 2 years later than it did in my previous life. For the first time in my life, I searched for her name online. The internet was flooded with messages mourning her loss. I found her Weibo account. Her last post was from the previous day. It was a photo of her wearing a black motorcycle suit, riding a heavy motorcycle, with her chestnut brown curly hair flowing in the wind. She was even more radiant and beautiful than she was in her school days. The caption read, "In the limited time we have, experience everything you want to experience." Ethan couldn't save Isabella's life because they had already broken up before the accident. 18. 2 days before I left, Time magazine invited me for an exclusive interview, saying I would be the cover story. The journalist who interviewed me was a smart and capable young woman. It was clear she had done her homework before the interview, and we had a pleasant conversation. As the interview drew to a close, she closed her notebook and looked at me sincerely. "Professor Grant, I have one final question for you." I smiled and nodded, gesturing for her to ask. "If you ever met your younger self, what would you say to her?" I couldn't help but marvel at how much research she had done. I laughed and said I would tell her to love herself and that I would raise her well. I returned home, and Alexander couldn't help but complain to me. "You're a week later than expected." There was an interview arranged by my mentor, and I couldn't decline. But fortunately, I had this extra week to make our wedding perfect. "Are you ready for the surprise?" I couldn't help but laugh out loud, hoping it wasn't a scare. He looked serious. "How could it be?" "I promise you'll love it." Something touched my heart, and suddenly my nose grew stuffy, and tears welled up in my eyes. He hurriedly wiped them away, asking, "What's wrong?" "What's wrong? You're already moved? I haven't shown you everything yet. Wait a moment, close your eyes first, then open them later." He ran off to the bedroom, still reminding me as he went, "Don't open them yet." I watched his hurried figure, slowly closed my eyes, and let the tears flow freely. These were tears of joy. In this life, I have taken good care of myself. Thank you for my second chance at life.